Picture this. I drive 2 hours to the cabin Sarah loved most, the cedar place her grandfather built by hand in 1967, and find a stranger in my living room holding bolt cutters and smiling like he owns the place. The heavy lock my father and I installed is sheared clean and lies in the dirt like a dead pet. The door hangs open, furniture shoved aside, Sarah's photos face down on the floor, and Brenda Kowalski, HOA President, tennis visor, spray tan and smelling of perfume like a department store, stands in my kitchen with a clipboard cataloging alleged violations, and purring that my dues were 3 days late, and Section 12.4 permits emergency access. While two men in tactical vests step out of my bedroom with sidearms drawn and Brenda's smug face goes snowman white in half a second, an expression I freeze-framed in my head and will never forget. I'm Nate Harmon, 52, a semi-retired machinist who buried his wife Sarah to cancer 4 years ago, and this cabin is not mere real estate but 3 generations of memory. His grandfather's hand-split cedar beams, the workshop my dad added in 1989, the creek where my grandson caught his first trout, and where Sarah's laugh lingers in the way the morning light hits the water, and Brenda, fresh off a Bellevue startup exit and draped in designer confidence. Moved in 2 lots over, ran for HOA president on a modernization platform, and in practice turned modernization into a campaign of harassment against rustic cabins she deemed dragging down values, citing non-existent statutes, inventing violations, and weaponizing bylaws to coerce sales to an LLC that flips properties to short-term rentals. The citations started as small punctures. An alleged unapproved exterior finish fined $250 a week for something that has never been painted, noise complaints based on a misread Quiet Towers rule, a derelict vehicle claim against my dad's restored Bronco, but escalated into engineered calamity when Brenda orchestrated a special assessment of $15,000 on pre-1990 cabins through an illegally noticed meeting. Chose an inexperienced engineering firm tied to her nephew, and filed a lien that hung on my property like a tumor, all while her nephew was caught on my trail cameras prying at foundation mortar with a crowbar to fabricate settling, and her husband walked into my machine shop offering to buy my cabin at a fraction of its true value, while hinting that regulatory headaches could be made to appear on my business if I refused. I learned to stop playing defense and start documenting. Timestamp notes, certified letters, copies of every email, certified records of HOA votes, county inspection certificates, and public records that exposed Brenda's hypocrisy. Her own cabin claiming primary residence exemptions while her tax home remained in Bellevue. A string of distressed sales purchased by Cascade Retreats LLC. Management fees on the HOA's Form 990 wildly inflated into 6-figure windfalls. And Rita, a retired courthouse clerk with 40 years of procedural instinct, taught me the power of small mistakes on their part. An improper notice period, a vote without quorum, failing to follow bylaw cure provisions, any one of which can void an assessment and rip the rug out from under a fraudulent lien. I hid cameras legally in tree hollows and inside the cabin, backed footage to the cloud in multiple places, filed public records requests for HOA financials and vendor contracts, and posted evidence to a private group of longtime cabin owners, where Carmen, Old Ede, and a dozen others revealed parallel abuses, forced tree removal under false easement claims, CPS reports over kids playing near the creek, manufactured derelict vehicle complaints, which revealed a pattern of selective enforcement and financial manipulation that was no accident but a system designed to squeeze legacy owners and sell their land to investors. When I filed a police report with the footage of vandalism, the responding deputy told me it was a civil matter, but civil does not mean impotent. Motions to nullify the special assessment, certified demand letters citing bylaws, public pressure from a local reporter, and neighbors refusing to fund the HOA created leverage we could use. While the HOA's lawyer fired off cease and desist letters with misapplied statutes and Brenda doubled down with social media posts painting me as a harasser, a tactic that worked on newcomers hungry for rising property values, but not on people who had lived here generations and smelled the pattern. Derek Kowalski's cash offer in my shop, an attempt to buy me out cheap while pretending to help, and the county inspector's odd behavior at my business taught me how influence and relationships can twist enforcement, and that you must photograph badges, record interactions, and keep 3 copies of every document in different places. My shop safe, a safety deposit box, and with Rita. I hired a local attorney who knew HOA law and small-town court rhythms, and we scheduled motions, depositions, and public record subpoenas while balancing the ugly human cost, gossip at the diner, social media smears, phone calls from strangers who weaponized character assassinations, and the quieter, sharper costs, nights awake smelling sawdust and cedar and grief, thinking about losing the place that carried Sarah's voice. My daughter Jessie, a civil engineer, flew up and argued to sue for trespass and intentional infliction of emotional distress, to catalog every camera angle and serve everyone in photographs, and her fierce clarity kept me focused when fatigue wanted me to fold. Glenn, the fishing guide with a voice like gravel, refused to let them bully the house at Liam's birthday, and his calm at the door kept a deputized friend from forcing entry without a warrant, while Rita's eyes found errors in their filings like a hound smells blood. And once the Form 990s arrived and a reporter picked up the thread, Brenda's quick fixes started to look like kickbacks and vendor selection schemes that left money missing from budgets and payments to phantom services. We subpoenaed bank transfers, traced invoices that matched nothing, and found duplicate billing lines that moved thousands into management pockets, until a quarter of the neighborhood refused to pay dues and requested a forensic audit, turning private intimidation into a public scandal. I do not pretend this was tidy or noble. It was dirty work done because the alternative was losing the cabin where Liam learned to fish, and where my grandfather's beams creak in winter like an old man clearing his throat, and because watching families like Carmen's get threatened with CPS, and Eid forced to cut an ancient oak over false claims made me refuse to be merely a passive victim. The legal path is slow and methodical, a lathe of petitions and precisions, and victory arrives like a measured cut when tolerances are right. But it requires patience, redundancy, community, and the willingness to use the dull machinery of law to grind an abusive machine to dust. The Friday with bolt cutters became the hinge on which months of documentation swung into action. A public records request that showed Brenda's exemptions, camera footage of her nephew committing vandalism, certified letters that exposed illegal meetings, and enough witness statements that our attorney could move to void liens and press claims for selective enforcement and financial fraud. And when Brenda realized she had miscalculated, and 2 trusted men I'd prepared for stepped out from the bedroom, her smile collapsed, and the bolt cutters on my floor became evidence rather than a trophy. I am angry, exhausted, and proud in equal measure, and I have learned to store copies of everything in 3 places, to trust neighbors who share patterns, and to fight with the kind of stubbornness that comes from losing someone you loved and refusing to lose the places she loved too. I will not celebrate the ruin of another person, no matter how relentless, but I will celebrate that public procedures, records, and a community willing to stand up can stop an organized squeeze. The cabin still smells of cedar and coffee and sawdust and grief. The lock is replaced. The workshop door closes at night, and Liam's fishing pole still leans in the corner where his grandpa taught him to tie a hook. And if an HOA Karen ever breaks into your family sanctuary, my hard-earned advice is simple. Document everything, backup footage in multiple places, file certified notices, involve a clerk or lawyer who knows procedural law, share evidence with neighbors, and let the slow teeth of the legal system bite. It's heavy, it's boring, and it takes patience. But it can undo the crooked arithmetic of fraud and turn a paper trail of corruption into a courtroom victory that protects the places our families built.